So for the past few days, I've been making abandoned videos, meaning I've been making videos of books that have been on my reading list, but I haven't been reading them for quite some time, and now it's time to admit to myself that I am never going to finish them. I have a bit of a backlog that I've been working through for a couple reasons. One reason is that it takes me a while to admit to myself I've abandoned a book. I always think to myself, I'll get around to it when I'm not so busy. I haven't abandoned it. I'm still going to finish it until I reach a point where I say to myself, okay, yeah, I'm not going to finish that book. But then the second reason I've built up a backlog is, to be quite honest, it's been quite busy here at my apartment. I've been busy with work, and we have a toddler running around this small apartment, not conducive to filming a lot of videos in a week. The wife and toddler are visiting the wife's family for the past 4 days, and so I've been able to work through my backlog and clear out some of these books that I've abandoned. If you've been watching this channel the past 4 days, I've admitted that I've abandoned the Longman Dictionary of Language Teaching and Applied Linguistics, Practical English Usage by Michael Swan, Children Learning English by Jane Moon. That's all been just within the past 3 days. And then today's the last one. I'll probably still continue to abandon books in the future, but this is the end of my backlog for now. Assessing Young Language Learners by McKay. So similar to the video I did yesterday on Children Learning English by Jane Moon, this was also something I picked up for the Delta Module 3. And in fact, a large part of the reason I never finished Children Learning English by Jane Moon is because I had come to the part of the Delta Module 3 where you have to write about assessment. I was panicking because I didn't know anything about assessing young learners. And so I picked up this book and shelved this one with the expectation I'd get back to it later. Of course, I did not. I should explain a little bit maybe about how I classify a book as started or abandoned or currently reading. If I get at all into a book, and at all meaning even just a couple pages, then on my weblog I mark it as started, and then I put it in my currently reading tab on the left-hand corner of the weblog. Sorry, tab is the wrong word. I put it in the column on the left-hand corner, the sidebar. And then once I've committed to having started it, then, well, once you start something, then if you're not going to finish it, then you have to admit that you've abandoned it. But in this case, actually, I never really got more than a couple pages into it. So I didn't really get a good start into this. It looks like it's quite well written. It looks like the type of thing that would be easy to read. I didn't make a lot of progress on this for a couple reasons. One is, I guess, for whatever reason, the first few pages didn't grab me. They seem to be talking about just kind of stuff in very general terms without giving a lot of useful information. I suspect it would have gotten better as I go. And in fact, well, I'll come back to that later, but I did actually skim and scan some of the middle of it, and it does look like quite useful information. The other reason is this copy I have here. This is the copy I got from my school library. You can see it's a bit big and bulky, and it doesn't quite lend itself to putting it in your pocket when you're going down for lunch. So a lot of my reading nowadays gets done during lunch breaks and kind of little bits and spurts. And this book just didn't lend itself to being carried around quite so easily. I have read big books before, kind of big-sized books, and do still now. If it's something I'm dedicated enough to or interested enough in, I will make the trouble. But this one, I got what I needed out of it for Delta Module 3 through the old skimming and scanning. So I'm not going to say it's not useful. If you're doing Delta Module 3 And if you're doing young learners as your specialism, then you'll want to use this book. I hesitate to say it's essential just because, I don't know, maybe, I mean, you need 5 or 6 books for the assessment section for Delta Module 3. And maybe, I don't know what's out there. Maybe there are other books you can use. This was the book that was in my school library. And even though I did not read this book cover to cover, I did use this in my section on assessment. In fact, I used it so much that after I had submitted my first draft to my tutor, the tutor wrote back and said, don't over-rely on McKay for this section, because you're not supposed to over-rely on any one source for the Delta Module 3. You're supposed to show that you've read broadly through a range of sources, or skim them at least. So then the second draft, I had to work back some of my references to McKay and kind of find the same thing in other sources. But I did find it very useful. I had been interested in reading through the whole thing because assessment with young learners has been something I've been vaguely interested in. As I've been teaching young learners and as I've been frustrated with some of the assessments that I've had to use during that time, I've wondered if there was any way that I could create better assessments or assess them better. And I suspect had I actually read this book, it would have given me some useful information in that regard. However, I never got around to finishing it, and it was the year I was doing Delta Module 3. I had a number of other things on my plate and a number of other reading projects on my plate for one reason or another. I got transferred to a different department with teacher training and was trying to read up on useful material for teacher training, and so this got left by the wayside. And now I am working in yet a different job in which I'm teaching English for academic purposes with university-age students who are youngish, but not what we would classify as young learners in the ESL category. So because I'm no longer working with young learners, or at least no longer doing it as my primary focus, I've lost motivation to finish this book, and I'm taking it off my currently reading list and putting it in my abandoned list. And that's really all I've got to say about it. I don't have any more intelligent commentary other than that. Sorry for wasting everyone's time with these abandoned videos. This will be the last of them for at least a few weeks until I decide I've abandoned more books. So stay tuned for that, and yeah, I'm going to stop here.